Hello, welcome to Cherry Bomb. I'm Gloria.
I'm Dalila Ali Raja.
I'm Tatum.
I'm Bethany.
And today we are talking about the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed on Friday, and I'm sure, like many of you, you've had some big feelings around it. I know that I have, and I'm sure that the other women here have. So we're going to talk about her life, but also the legacy about her relationship, the love that she had with her partner and her husband for 50 something years, and what that was about. So yeah, we're going to talk about RBG, the notorious RBG, and also what makes a good partnership and what's the job in being a spouse. So where were you all when you learned that RBG passed?
I was in my garden trying to write. And I had like I was like, this is, like, our democracy is on such a threat anyway, and she was such a stand for so much, and I know that she fought so hard to stay alive so that she could continue to fight. Like, both her and John Lewis, like, they were like from their deathbeds still trying to do stuff to help serve. It's such a brilliant and beautiful legacy, and it's so sad to see her go, but she sure did give us everything.
Yeah, for sure. I was working and I was actually texting someone and it came in, like, it popped up, and I was just like, I stopped, and like all of my like girlfriend, text chats, boom, 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 boom. Everybody started, pinging, and it was just like, oh God, no. I know. We were all like, why, like, hold on, like, and we wished, but yeah, it was really sad. It's so sad.
It was 6 o'clock in the morning here, and I sort of turned over in bed, and Lauren was already awake, and she was like, "RBG just died," and it was that thud of how it landed. And someone else beautifully put it in online, and it might have even been one of you that posted it. That it felt like for them, they couldn't celebrate this incredible woman because the first feeling they felt was cold fear. And I think it was that thud. And it almost took me 24 hours before I could really listen to a thing about her life and kind of feel a bit more like I could even think about her as a person and her family and like what she did and her working relationships, because that scary feeling of doom was kind of the first thing. But I was thinking my experience would have been quite different. Obviously I didn't grow up in America. I don't know when you all first became aware of her. Like, was she someone that you grew up knowing about? Like, when did her sort of media presence start in your lives?
For me, the 90s, I think, when I first heard about her when I was in college, women's studies. And I think that when Clinton, I know that when Carter first posted her and then, Clinton brought her to the Supreme Court, I think that probably the Clinton years were the most when I learned the most about her. And I was like, oh, another woman on the Supreme Court. Yay. Look at us infiltrating. So yeah, I think that that's probably whenever I first started hearing about her. And I just always thought, like, what power in a little package, like, she's just like so much, right?
Yeah. What about you, Glo? Where were you?
I was at work, which is also very ironic because you think about all that she did for women to be able to work, right? For that right, and that feeling of equality. So I was at work, and our showrunner said it just like it came across, and he said it kind of in real time. And you don't want to cry at work. Like me, I didn't want to cry at work, but I could not help it. And so I just kept getting like moving further and further away from like the screen. And by the time we'd been like it was just like this part of my body on the screen, and I was just bent over, just like trying not to cry. in work because work is via Zoom. So I was just like in the corner of my computer, just like crying, but trying to act like I'm not crying because it was just so upsetting. And I think the thing that was upsetting, of course, the impending doom, but just that I felt bad for her that we didn't have a world where if she wanted to retire, she could have, so that she could have relaxed. And that made me sad for her. Just like, you've done so much for us and you didn't get to chill. Like maybe she didn't want to chill. Maybe she didn't want to chill, but it would have been nice if she'd had the option.
Right.
That she did. Like her plan, not plan, but her vision was that the first female president in 2016 would come in and then she would retire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, about a long old road that she knew, I mean, how much was on her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's unfair to do that to any human being.
Right.
Yeah, did it make you kind of rethink like how we should be doing this course?
I mean, there's actually a lot of options. It's interesting because people have been putting up op-eds about, not op-eds, but just informational things. Like the number of people justice on the Supreme Court actually isn't set. So Congress can change it. I learned that by watching like the Blacklist or Designated Survivor or something. However, now people are putting out all these pieces about it because they're like, there actually is hope that if we can take back the House and the Senate, that they can just actually expand the court and then add more people so that it's actually more balanced. So it doesn't have to be the death knell we think it is. I do think if things don't go that way, there's a whole other thing, but there's more possibilities to that. Like there's a lot of flexibility that people don't even know is there with the Supreme Court because it was never set constitutionally.
Mm-hmm. I do think that this happening right now at this time I know it's going to activate people on both sides, but I do think that it, when you look back at her life and her legacy, it does kind of think as a woman what she's done and how you don't want that to go away. You know what I mean? Like, so it may invigorate people when you look at like what she fought for and what could be at stake. Maybe it will inspire some people to be like, we have to get our heads in the game and get our asses to the polls, Could be.
There's some, one of the ladies in one of my mother's groups online was talking about, she lives in I think like Atlanta or someplace in the South, but she was like, 3 of her neighbors who were normally independent voters who voted for Trump last election, all 3 of them came crying to her door separately after Ruth passed, saying, what are we going to do? What's the thing? I don't understand. Like, we can't have him in. What are we going to do? And she's like looking at them because she's like, she knows all 3 of them voted for that man. But I think all 3 of them are going to make a different choice. So I'm hoping that this will galvanize that 53% that pushed him over the edge of women in that category and get them to maybe shift and change their mind.
I hope so. I mean, unfortunately, obviously we didn't want this to happen. I hope that, whatever galvanizes people or, tips people over the edge. I mean, I'm like, how much more could tip on any edge? Well, what more does anyone need on that level, right? But I mean, if it does, then I'll take whatever we can get,
I quite like the story of, so when her and her husband met, that they decided what they were going to study together. So they hadn't already put it 100%, in line. I think they'd already done their undergrad. So I guess when they were doing their graduate, they were like, okay, what are we going to do? And they both became lawyers. And then she passed an exam that he didn't. And he was so proud of her, and he would tell the story about how she'd got it and he didn't. And I just really, really like that kind of like the start of their marriage was them like, okay, what are we doing? And they started it in together.
Something about that strategizing. Also, you think that like this one woman was one of 500 people in a law class at Harvard. you know, and she was told she couldn't be there. So the kind of person that she would have to have as a spouse, as a partner, you know, is the kind of person that would let her be, you know, it's like, let me be great. Like she has the kind of partner that's like, I'm not only going to just like let you be great, I'm going to
Help you
like
be
have your
great.
back in that. I'm going to have your back and help you and be right there to hold, you know, hold up your greatness. I mean, it's pretty profound to have, you know, a career like that and a love like that in your life.
Yeah, and I was in reading about when he fell ill, and then she like wrote up his papers that he dictated, you know, to her, and she wrote them up and submitted that. Like it's just it, I mean, I think that our generation, unfortunately, we don't have that many marriages to look to as a sort of who we hold a standard to of like the way you would want to find in a partner. But they were obviously a perfect match because of exactly what you just said too, Glow, is just that, you know, in that generation, if you're going to have a woman that speaks up the way she speaks up and speaks up for women, whatever, that's got to be the right kind of man to be with her.
Yeah.
So they had quite a great love. I mean,
It makes him an exceptional man during that time too. Like both of them were outliers in what they were willing to go for, how they were willing to live on the margins and be seen differently than the public typically saw people at the time. And they would both have to be willing to do that with each other. I don't know, I guess that sounds like, oh, sorry, Tatum, go ahead.
And you think how many other Ruth Bader Ginsburgs would have been out there that didn't have any of that infrastructure, you know, or maybe listened to a man who, you know, was like, no, actually, you have to stay home. Because, I mean, if you think of what was that, you know, like, no, you have to stay home and look after the kids. This is what's done. And yeah, how many didn't
Or
go
feel like they're emasculating, like the men feel like, oh, you're going to emasculate me if you're seen this way and I can't walk through the world or I lose power. And I think it actually takes a special balance to be able to maintain that and to still be able to do that, especially during that time for men who chose that. They have to hold it in a certain way so it didn't cause problems with their own businesses or their own things, which also shows that he had a gift in some way around that too, because he was still able to thrive and support her simultaneously.
Okay. I was watching the Notorious RBG last night, and she talked a lot about her husband's sense of humor, and that was like, and when you would see them together, you would see how, you know, she was, you know, pretty serious, and he just had like a really cute sense of humor that I can understand. You know, like that was super attractive. I was like, look how cute they are, because she is pretty serious, but he's able to make her laugh. And you have somebody that thinks like she probably does. Her mind is, it says like she'd be up till 4 o'clock in the morning, like working. She's one of those minds that need to be at work to be able to have somebody like crack through with a joke or two. Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
What a love.
Well, and it sort of inspired us. Yeah, I was going to say that triggers what we were sort of talking about with that, you know, the job description, the role of this of a spouse, a partner, a whatever. So whatever you want to call the person in your life. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I wonder how they defined it. I wonder if it just came naturally. I wonder if they ever thought about it in that way, like, let me define my role, what is my role or whatever, or if it just came really naturally. I would think with a couple that was married for 56 years, maybe it was just there. I don't know.
But I wonder, because if they strategized what they were going to study together, maybe they strategized other things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the first, you know, like if you look at, because clearly they had a deep love for each other, but marriage didn't start out that way. Marriage started out as contracts, usually around property, and women actually were a part of the property.
Right. We were the property.
we were the property, along with whatever assets that we had, because we weren't technically supposed to own things. So there were things that went along with that. There's like that episode that we did with Jill Bennett years and years ago where she was explaining about that ring that she got. And I was like, like basically her insurance policy. And she's like, that's what engagement rings originally were, is like, it was an insurance policy. It was enough that the woman could do something with that piece of jewelry. And that's why it was so important that it was worth so much money. You know what I mean? And I was like, so there was like a negotiation around that and how you're going to show up in that and how you're going to provide and what allows a family to thrive, you know?
So being outside of that world now, right? Because, you know, now there's, you know, people marry for many reasons, whatever the reasons are, but people marry now for love more. You know, that's like a thing now. We're like, okay, we want to marry for love. We don't want to be property anymore. How do you think that, and I'm saying this as somebody who has not been married, and who thinks about marriage a lot. I think about it a lot, like, and what it entails and what would be required of me and what I would require. And this is probably why I'm not married. But I think about like what that job is, like what's the job of the person that you're with and what's your job as like the partner or spouse.
I've heard that successful marriages are when both partner thinks they're getting the better deal. So whatever the deal is, that they're like, oh, I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
When both of them are thinking that, that's where the magic is. So, you know, there is some kind of transaction that happens in relationships. And I think we don't always want to think about it until, you know, often I think it's until people break up that you kind of think of the transactions that you had that you're no longer going to have. Because, you know, I think there is now like more of a thing of kind of blindly going into it and love is going to cover it, right? Like, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't believe in that at all. I don't.
I'm making some faces, Tatum, because you, as my best friend, maybe you should have told me that shit 10 years ago. I'm just gonna say that little statement right there, that would have been a really nice thing before I was in the middle of a divorce right now.
I don't know, Beth, if you could have heard that, my love. I was there too.
I know you were there.
All of us were. I don't know. Yeah. Tatum had a problem from the first night, y'all. She's like, this is a problem.
Okay, wait.
Wait,
my first kiss, my first marriage, Glow had a problem too.
Oh my God, I'm scot-free now. Whew. Yes, no, I said, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? And you just kept giggling and giggling and giggling. So that was it.
Meaning she knew.
Okay, wait, hold on. I think but I love what you just said though, because in hindsight, which is the second thing of the part that you just said, in hindsight, I was always like, he's getting such a great fucking deal. Like all the time I thought, you're getting such a great fucking deal. Where's my deal? I don't have a deal. I'm not getting a deal. I am the deal.
You're the opposite of what works the best.
It's so, yeah. But Beth, I think that about myself all the time too. I think like I do.
I think you are too. I think, listen, I actually think you are too. I just think it's funny that you're willing to say it out loud. That's all. Okay. I actually think that you're, yes. I think
like I'm like a really good deal. I think like I'm a
great catch.
Package. Yeah, I feel like I'm a really great catch. And so I think that about myself all the time. Like whoever, like you're lucky in so many ways. So many ways.
Have you thought about like in that, like thinking of yourself as a good catch, kind of like what your transactions or roles are, like what it is that you bring, like in quite tangible ways?
We've had these conversations a lot, actually, me and Bo around. We've had these conversations about like, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
A lot.
I am the table.
Fair.
No, you have to bring
the table. Yeah. You know, in the kind of like there are all kinds of things, right? There are like the practical things of like, you know, I remember my father always saying, you know, make sure you get a fool that can cook, otherwise you'll be cooking for that fool your whole life. make sure you get a food that clean. Otherwise you'll be clean up after that food your whole life. Like he would always telling me these things like, I don't know. And so, but what he was also saying to me is like, make sure you get somebody who can take care of themselves so that you don't have to take care of them all the time, right? But also with that, he also was like, make sure you can take care of yourself. So I think in that way, like the things that I need to do to be able to take care of myself, like I can cook for myself. I know how to take care of a household. I can balance my checkbook. I don't need your money. I don't, you know, like all of those kinds of things that are like taking care of yourself. I think like I have those practical kinds of things.
Super
Sure.
important.
Yeah.
Practical things. I think at marriage, maybe marriage at 22, may be a big difference in marriage at this stage of life, because I think those practical things really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as we get older, well, and for me, like the marriage I'm in now is my second marriage, and I think I had a greater awareness, obviously, of what I was getting myself into around choosing to be married, what that means and entails if you eventually disentangle it or whatever. And so I was looking at things from a more practical standpoint, even though there was deep love. Like I was like also looking at what things are important to me from a practical standpoint as well. Because like me and my ex-husband loved each other deeply. That we loved each other was not what had things fall apart. It was a whole bunch of other things that love can't cement and fix to make my life, my spirit, and myself feel more peaceful or more at ease or walk through the world with basically peace. Like I wasn't feeling peace by the end of it. And it didn't matter whether or not I loved that person or not, is that I could not sit in the way that it felt in it towards the end of it.
What are the practical things that you know now are a part of what you need in a marriage? Just the practical part of
I
it.
needed monetary stability because partially because I'm an artist for a living, like having someone that also had balance and a real commitment to that and a need for that for themselves meant that there was at least a stable base that then I could upgrade. I'm very good at upgrades. I'm good at punching up scripts. I'm good at upgrading people's lives. You know what I mean? Like I'm good at upgrades. So I was like, I needed like a good solid base to be working the upgrade from. But I need to know that the base was a place where we could start that was already feeling like solid ground instead of like something I was having to climb up a hill or out of a hole.
So financial speaking.
Yeah, so for sure financial. Kindness was really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness and compassion for other humans and the world. Like there's something about the ability to see, I mean, I think I'm finding out like my family has a very deep thing around service, I think, and so do I. So like somebody that can see that part of me and like accept that part of me, but also has some drawingness to some of that for themselves too, I think was important to me because it's a fundamental part of family structure for me to have like at least some desire to help make the world a better place. Supporting my creativity, like that they could see, like I'm big. I'm a big personality. I'm big. I run through rooms and I spark, like I'm that. I needed someone who enjoyed that I shine. I needed that. Yeah.
So practically speaking with you, T, what are like the practical things that you feel like you need to have in like partnership and commitment?
That's such a good question. I think a lot of the same things. I think for a lot of women, that's shining and kind of going back to RBG, like you said, being kind of a bigger personality or having a lot of emotion or having a lot of depth or having a lot of sparkle or having a lot of contrast, right? I think a lot of partners really struggle with that. I think like a lot of women kind of feel a little dulled by their partner. Like their partner doesn't, can't understand, for example, why you can be here and then everyone comes over and you're like here, and how there is this kind of this landscape. And I think that to be really kind of lifted isn't that someone kind of suffers through it, you know, but actually that they revel in it, that they love it. I remember talking to this man who he identified as bi, but he had only ever fallen in love with women. And so and he didn't want children. And in his last relationship, he just kind of felt like, oh, I really don't want to make any of the same mistakes that I've done before. And he wanted to go into this new one. And he wrote this list of what he wanted. And what he wanted was a woman that not only was okay with his sexuality, but celebrated it. And people went, like,
Find it.
you know, like that was, and he was like, well, this is what I'm putting out, right? I don't want to just be like, oh, okay, like
Tolerated, yeah.
Like I want that part of me to be loved. And he found someone who friggin' loves it. They seem incredibly happy. And I think that's the thing. Like, it's like finding those parts of you, like someone else finding them really wonderful and intriguing. And so you get to full shine, really.
I love that.
What are your like kind of practical things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, like I said, I think we're kind of on the same, we're in the same, you know, stages in life that those kind of things are important. I feel like, you know, I'm in a place right now because I'm looking backwards on this marriage, you know, about to be all wrapped up, and put a stamp on it as being marriage number 2 done. Is that the practical stuff of, you know, the equality of it. Like, I just don't want to mother anyone. I've never been a mother. I don't want to be a mother. I've never had children. And the joke throughout my entire marriage was, oh, like, isn't it cute, like how you mother him, like that he needs a mother, and isn't that cute? Isn't that funny? And I realize in hindsight, it's not funny. It's not funny or cute. It's not funny or cute. Is that, like, anytime there was anything heavy, anytime that there was any load to lift, I lifted it alone. I did not have a partner that was an equal to me that could do all of the things that Glow's daddy said needed to be done. I did all that on my own. Like, and I just thought, oh, but we have so much fun together. We laugh all the time. He's so gregarious. He's so outgoing and gregarious. He can get along in a room with anyone. He can make friends. He's a fun guy, which is true. But, like, I need the practical. I need empathy. He did not have empathy. Big one, empathy. You know, I need someone who can do exactly what you said, which is, like, just take care of themselves, don't need me for anything, and, like, lift you to another level. So, like, I'm good. Like, I'm good by myself right here. I've been taking care of myself for a real long time. Took care of myself before him. Will take care of myself after him. But then you're here, and that partner should take you here. They should see the things in you that you don't always see in yourself, and then point those out and go, look at how great that is about you. Awesome. Let's take that to another level. That's the thing that you miss when you look back.
And I think that, like, I always think of it like, you know, I wash you dry. Like, you know what, it gets done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I also think of, like, time is very important. And, like, I think money, you spend in one or the other. So if I'm spending all the time cleaning, then I feel like then I'm the only, that's my time, and my time is valuable. If we both do it, then we each have extra time. So that's where you talk about, like, that's where, like, in my mind, the metaphor is I wash you dry. You know what I mean? Like, I wash you fold. You know, like, we're each coming to, because also I don't want anybody who wants me to bear that load. Because then I'm like, why would you want me to have to do all of that? And my father was that way. Like, he was like, I don't want my wife cleaning floors. Like, that was just a weird thing he has. Like, I don't want my wife on her hands and knees cleaning the floor. I just don't want my wife to do that. And he would do that. I mean, he also did laundry and things like that because my mom was the one that was making most of the cheese. So but I just like that idea of like somebody that doesn't want me to have to wash and dry.
I think that like talking about like a description for a spouse, I actually think it, for me, one of the top things is to support in helping like that upgrade, like that making you bigger, like helping to lift you up. And especially like when you don't see yourself as big as you actually are, being able to hold the anchor for that vision of that self that is bigger, I think is a part of our job as spouses. Because there's always times I think where we will have self-doubts and we will have, and I think that that's like one of, besides all the other stuff I talked about, one of the biggest jobs that I take on as with any of my partners. And actually, to be honest, I kind of take that on even in my friendships too, is that like, if you are not seeing your grandest self in a moment, I will be the anchor for your grandest self until you find your way back.
Yeah. I was thinking about this a lot when we were talking about this, and I was a part of this book called Lesbian Love. Here Come the Brides, Reflections of Lesbian Love and Marriage book. And I wrote an essay in it, and this was before marriage equality passed, and it was talking about that and how I'd gone to this wedding that was kind of like very old school, and the husband will protect and provide and blah, 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 all these things. And then I started thinking for myself, what is it that I could commit to doing in a marriage? Like, what would I commit to doing? And I came up with these 3 C's, and I have now since added a 4th one. But the first one was a cheerleader. Like, and that's the whole idea of like, I see your greatness and I'm going to be like cheering you on, helping you get there. I'm going to be doing mat talk at you, like in that cheerleading show. I'm going to be like, you got this, you can do this. Like that was like the first C. The second one was like companionship. Like I'll be there with you. I'll be able to like, where you go, I go, where I go, you go. Like we're like this, that's the fun part of it. Like we get to be companions through it. And the other one was like the commitment of like saying like, we in this and I'm in this. But the 4th one that came to me later as of late, like within the last year, is the idea of cherish. Like, what does it really mean? And I think about that like with Ruth and her husband, is like, I feel like they both really cherished each other. So that 4th C of like really valuing, that's like where you were saying, Beth, where like, or I think it was Tatum, like the other person's like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this. Like, and the other one's also like, I can't believe that that's my, you know, but that's the idea of like cherishing somebody, you know, and that was the 4th C that I just now clicked for me years later. Again, this is probably why I was never married before, because I just now got the cherishes.
I think you had mirrored for you a lot of those beautiful things in your parents' marriage that I think most of us don't always get to see. You know what I mean? I think that Papa Bigelow showed up that way. You know what I mean? A lot, like it was framed so that like, which I think is like you joke that that's why you're not married, but it's like that being able to see that people have to be able to meet the bar, and the bar is high.
I told him he ruined me. I told that man he ruined me.
Well, you kept the bar high.
You know, it's like you probably saved yourself like what 2 starter marriages,
right? At least,
right?
Yeah.
Look at the rest of this quadrant. You know, I mean, like, yeah. So,
you know, like it was we did so much heartache because of that.
Yeah.
I love him. Like, I want to go back in time and be adopted. Like,
well, I had very good role models in that as well, and I feel like well, my parents were married for 65 years, and you know, it was, I gotta say though, I mean, probably everybody says it, a simpler time. You know, like that's a simpler time. I mean, it was just like they were really tight in terms of partners. They just did not develop these big lives outside of each other. You know, they, you know, I mean, they had like friends that were, you know, on the outskirts or whatever, but the life built together, the two of them, was the number one most important thing. The family, the life, the what they built together. And that was just like solid, you know, like, and they, you know, I didn't really see them fight about much of anything that had any consequence, you know, like little stuff, but it was like, they were just really solid. And I always was like, dang, I wish I could find that. But I just feel like, times are different now. It's just a little bit harder to keep things so simple because just there's so much more other influence all around us, just like all day long, and things being thrown at us all the time. I just don't think life is that simple anymore. And you can't just cocoon yourself in this one little family that, you know, never has any other outside influence. So I think it's a little bit harder. My therapist tells me not to be so hard on myself about not having found a 65-year marriage. So
I agree with your therapist.
I agree with your therapist too. And I also think, like, I don't know a lot about your mommy and daddy, but I do know from what you've said, they both wanted simple lives too. Like, that was what their heart's desire was. And Bethany, you are not that bitch.
I know, right?
You're just not. So like, it's not even, it's that you had a bigger thing for yourself and who you are that was fully and clearly intended to be present and make a mark on the world in a different way. And that they gave you such a beautiful foundation and a base to be able to do that. But neither of them wanted to be those people. They just gave you a foundation to fly from. And sometimes when you're flying like that, it's not always easy to find someone who can fly with you at the same heights at the same time.
Yeah, agreed.
What I would say that they did give you was you have this incredible capacity for openness. And when you're in a relationship, you are in it and you do cherish it and you do look after it. And so you have given people the opportunity, right? Like, you didn't
fuck up. Okay.
That's not messing up. That's on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, but that was because like you saw what cherishing looks like, right? So when you are in it, you do it. And then, you know, other people, you know, they don't always rise to the occasion, but you gave them a fucking good opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think, like, even knowing what that looks like is incredible. Like, my parents, I don't know how I'm so sane. Like, I mean, obviously that's for another session, but I am so sane as a result. But yeah, you know, I've never had kind of a role model of a relationship that worked. And so I think I've always like wondered, like, whether it's me, like whether like I'm somehow dysfunctional, so therefore I'm not living up to my job, like, because I'm inherently broken, you know, like it might be coming from my side. So that's, I think, taken a long time to kind of go, oh, it might not be that. I might have been pretty sane.
I have no bias as your best friend, but there is nothing broken about you, bitch.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Big up. So what are our takeaways, y'all, from RBG and our discussion?
Well, I would say the 4 C's.
Yeah, those are good to hear. Like, yeah.
I love them.
Cheerleading and
companionship, commitment, and cherish.
Okay. Yeah, love it.
Who knows?
I say be lifted up. That's you know, that's the thing. And we've worded it, we've all said it in a little bit different way, but it's all the same message. And I honestly, it's funny that whenever we talking about this topic, and we said, what is our job description as a spouse or partner? The very like first thing that came to mind is lift me up, lift each other up. That's the very first thing that came to my mind. And that's sort of what we've all, without even pre-talking about that as being a thing, we've all sort of come to that as one of the number one things. So that's what I've got.
Another episode for the future is how do you lift each other up? Noted.
Noted.
And what's yours?
I think it's like that, holding that space for the light. Like it was so, and that can be done in any time period. I think a lot of times when we look back, we look at like the circumstances that would have stopped somebody from doing that, but you look at like their marriage, and I think like then it's possible for everybody to find the capacity in any time period or any set of circumstances to continue to lift each other up. It's a choice. Like it's a choice. Like he was able to find his way through the things. He was able to be the things he needed to be so that she could be the things she needed to be, and vice versa. It's possible. It's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you, Mom?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to skip me. I was thinking about that idea, and I saw you when you're you like the idea of when Beth is in the things that she's like full in and full hearted. And so I think that's kind of my takeaway, like to be when you are being that person or whatever it is that you're in it, it's like that full heartedness of it was my takeaway. To be full hearted.
And that we can recover either way. We can, because everybody, I think when we don't, it's because it's a gamble, but we are resilient and we can be full hearted and thrive.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you guys.
Love you
Look
guys.
like you drank, love you too. Look like you drank a lot of your drink already, D.
Mm-hmm.